Hi, this is Mike. Welcome back to the Moodle Programming series. The goal of this series is to create a custom Moodle block. In this session, we will build just an absolute basic block that we can, the absolute minimum that Moodle will accept and install. And then we'll play with it a little bit, and in the next sessions, we'll add some complexity, just add some different features like connecting to a database, forms, having a view, things like that. Just things that you would, expect to do with a block. It won't necessarily, add any new feature or anything like that. It's more just going to, demonstrate the use of, the different APIs that are available in Moodle. So first off, we're here on before we actually get started, there's a few things we need to do. And one of them is just be aware of the fact that on the Moodle.org site, click on development, the development tab. It'll bring you to a page where there's lots of resources, that are helpful. Another place would be the forums, and then probably a third place would be to look at the source code. And there's some good comments in the source code that give you a little in depth, uh, sometimes a better perspective than even some of this documentation. But it's there's no real straightforward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 way of doing any kind of programming. It just requires a matter of getting in and doing it and experimenting using your own imagination. And this particular session and all of these sessions are just, really building blocks to help, with the very basics. And then from there, your own imagination and experience and desire, whatever, will fill in the blanks. On this page, since we're going to, I guess one thing before we get to that, there are a lot of Moodle plugin types. I think it's like 37. I mean, there are a lot. I'm surprised that there is that many, but there are a lot of different kinds of blocks, or not blocks, but plugins that can be made. And the one that we're going to focus on is the blocks plugin. So, and this resource could have been accessed from here also. So what's going to be covered is a lot on this. Will be a lot that's on here, just a little bit different angle maybe. I mean, it's the same stuff, but just be aware that it's here if just for future reference. And let's go ahead and before we actually, there's a couple things we need to do. I'm going to go ahead and use the login that we had set up in PuTTY before. And there's a couple things we want to do on the server side before we actually do any login as root. And before we do any programming in NetBeans. So I've got a alias set up, and what I want to do is make, right now the root is the owner, the user, the owner, and then there's a root group. I want to make the Mike account the owner of the owner of Moodle, all the Moodle directories, so we can read and write on anything that we want. So we'll just use root and then Moodle. So now Mike is the owner with read-write access to this directory and everything underneath it. That's the first thing we want to do. And the next thing is go ahead and create a new project. And this one will create PHP application from a remote server. And we'll name it Moodle block. 5.3 default encoding. And IP address. And I'll get rid of this. Just put it at the root. And we'll use the same connection that we had created in the previous sessions, or if you need to create a new one. If you need to create a new one, just include the name, the host name, username, password, and then provide an initial directory and test the connection, and it should be good. So we'll use that, and next. So now we should be able to fetch some directories, whatever directories we would want. And in this particular case, we're going to want some things under the blocks. Not all of them, but we'll pick one just to use as a template. So what this will do is this will actually download this specific block to our local machine. Might take a couple seconds for it to complete. There's not a lot of files, but there are a few. There we go. Here's a structure that is required, and again, you can kind of reinforce this on this page in terms of what's required. But this is the basic structure. There's 4 files that we'll need in order to create the most basic block there is. And one of them is access. It's under DB access. And this provides the capabilities for the block. We'll go over a little more detail in just a second. And then the second one that's required is the one for the language, and it's this file, the block underscore my profile. In this case, that's the name of the block, and they just use a naming convention to where they prepend all of the, not all, but some of the files with block underscore, and then the name of the block that you're going to create, and the block name has to match the folder name, which you can see that's the case here, that there's the folder name, then here's the and like I say, in this case, this file needs to have the block underscore my profile.php. So in this file, this is just a matter of where strings are created that will be used within the block. You can use a string in one place, in multiple places, but it can be edited in one place, so that it makes it not only nice that way, but also if you want to include other languages, this is where you would add different folders with different language abbreviations, and then it would be the same thing underneath here. The third file that's required is actually a class, and it extends the block base. So there's quite a lot that goes on in this file. Initially, and a lot of this isn't necessary for what we'll do, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Then here's a couple other files that aren't are necessary if you're going to we'll see these later on, But the fourth file that's required is version. And in this file, you will give just as it shows right here, there's a plugin version, which is the date that you created it. I mean, it could be arbitrary. It wouldn't, just as long as it's just set up to be the year, the month, the day, and then the hour, 24-hour clock. The second requires this version of Moodle. And I'll show you where you can find this date on the development site. And then the name of the component, which would be block_myProfile in this case. So what we'll do is we'll just use these as templates, copy or make our own directory. So since we have write access to the server, we can go ahead and create a new folder or directory here. And we'll just name this Mike_basic. And finish. Then that actually pushed it to the server. So now, since we've added a folder to the blocks directory, if we accessed Moodle now, if we logged in, we will see that Moodle recognizes that there's a new block because it redirects us to this would be the page that you would access under notifications, and it's asking us to upgrade the database. So let's just go ahead and do that. I do have debugging on, so it'll give us a stack trace of what at least one of the errors that it's seen. So it says block Mike_basic is defective or outdated, cannot continue, sorry. And then over here it tells us, okay, we're missing a version.php file. So let's go back and let's just grab the version file, copy it from here up into the Mike_basic block. We'll need to change the block name. And again, there's certain places where, and this is one place where it's necessary, where you have to prepend block underscore to the name of the block. So Mike_basic. So we'll go ahead and save that and upload that to the server. That's not going to get rid of that error, because if we kept trying to, before we get all 4 files in, if we kept trying, it'll just continue to error, and it more than likely step through each file that's missing. So the next file that we know we need is the access.db under the db folder. So we'll just do the same thing there. We'll copy that and paste it underneath. And we won't touch we won't modify any of the comments at this point. We're just trying to get this thing to work. And in the documentation, it notes in there that there's 2 capabilities that are required for new blocks. They're both additions after 2.4, and they're both necessary for just more control over individual blocks. That's about all I can say. We will need to change this to Mike_basic. And the same thing down here. Mike_basic. So So just reading through the requirements in this capabilities array. First, you have the name of the capability, and then the capability type. In this case, it's going to be a write. Context level, system, archetypes. In this case, it'll be user, and it'll be a capability allow. So that'll be the permission that's set for the user at the context level. So in other words, and this particular capability is used on the My Moodle page. So it makes sense that it's a context level user allow capability. This one doesn't make any sense. You'll see what I mean. If I did quite a bit of testing on this. If I comment that out, it really doesn't have any effect on the kind of permissions or the permissions that you see, which we'll see in a minute. I'm just going to leave that one unexplained until I find out more information on that. I will at some point bring that up, maybe even create a video at the very end when we're finished and go over some of the issues that were a little bit fuzzy as we were going through. Next capability, block /my basic _ basic add instance. This is just one that would be more general, not just on the My Moodle page, but anywhere in the site. And this one, in addition to having, this one also has a risk bit mask. You'll see those icons when you're in the roles pages, and this is where they are determined. And it all depends on what the capability is. So in this case, there's a risk of spam, and there's also a risk of cross-site scripting. Again, the capability type is write, context level, context block, archetypes. So we're going to allow default would be the editing teacher and the manager role will have this capability initially. If we wanted to add something to that, we could just put a comma and then whatever archetype. And again, on this permission here, that's just not real clear what that does. Clone permissions from. I mean, I understand it, but I just don't see in the application itself where it actually does anything. So now we have 2 of the 4 files moved over into our basic block, and the next one that we'll take over, we'll copy the class file. So we'll just, and then we'll open it up. Again, we're going to ignore a lot of the commenting and whatnot. We will touch bases. There'll be a few more at least, videos where we'll review things and get a better grasp on the entire process. But for now, let's just try to get the initial very basic block created. This is the block _ my profile, or the name of the block. So we need to change it to from my profile to Mike _ basic. Like I said earlier, that there's quite a lot going on in this, so we're going to remove all of this except for the title. So here we have the title. We have the init function that's called when this class is instantiated, and we're setting the title of the block with this get string method. The get string method is associated with the language block or the language file. Let's go ahead and we can leave that as it is, the plugin name. So we'll just go here and we'll make this Mike underscore basic. And that should be all we need to do with this file. We'll need to rename it though. Just go ahead and do that. So Mike underscore basic. So now we've renamed the file, we've renamed the class, and we've also eliminated a lot of member functions that aren't necessary at this point. And we've also renamed this getString function. We changed the parameters. We left the parameter alone in terms of plugin name, but we did change the block that it's associated with. So now let's go back to our My Profile template, kind of, and let's copy the language file and go into it, edit it. First, let's go ahead and change the name. Okay, and now let's go down here and edit. Let's remove all these strings that we aren't going to need, and just keep the plugin name, and we're going to call this Mike's basic. Spell correctly, block. So let's go ahead and save this upload this entire directory. Just make sure we didn't miss anything. And let's go to Moodle. And let's continue and see what we get here. Okay. We have a new version of this Mike basic block, and it requires Moodle 2013-11-05-00. I'm pretty sure that's Moodle's 2.0's first release. Go ahead and just upgrade the Moodle database now. And it's upgrading to a new version. So here we go. We got a success. Not sure why I did that. There we go. So now let's turn on editing for this page. And let's look and see if our block is in here. There it is. There's Mike's basic block. Okay, so let's go to the home page, and I guess we added the block on the other page here, so we'll need to add it here too, because okay, so by default, even though we did the absolute bare minimum, all we did was add the 4 files, the access, the capabilities, the language string, the class that really controls most of the features related to the block, and then the version. With that little bit of work on our end, Moodle by default provides us with quite a bit of there's some functionality here. So we can move the block. We can assign roles. We can hide the block. We can configure Mike's block, basic block. And this is just all done by default. And this is really just positioning in terms of where it's at on the page, where the block appears on this page. So we get that out of the box. Assign roles. There was another string that we probably should have added there, but we can catch that next time. When I mentioned earlier about not understanding this permission, where it's Moodle, let's say Moodle site manage blocks or Moodle my manage blocks. Well, neither of those permissions actually show up here. There is and if I deleted or commented out that clone permissions array element, it didn't seem to affect any of this at all. So I'm not real clear on why. I thought that maybe these permissions were bundled in that manage blocks capability, but there is actually a manage blocks capability. So I'm not really sure what's going on there. I'm missing something. Here are those the two icons that would show up in relation to what we put in there, like the risk spam and risk cross-site scripting. We'll go over this numerous times, and by the time we're finished, we'll have a much better understanding of what it takes to build the block. So we'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.